Viewers are warned that the following programme contains flashing images. Cinemas this week as the leader of a furious fivesome in an uncompromising new war movie. Light 'em up! Set during the final days of World War II, Fury sees Brad Pitt star as the commander of a tank crew thrust behind enemy lines, seeing off the last of the German army. It sounds like all the stuff of a boy's own adventure, heroes, villains, daring do. Well, yes, but more accurately, no. Action! Because Fury is a hard, violent, profane story of men in battle with characters every bit as unflinching as the movie itself. I met with the film's writer-director, David Ayer, as well as some of his cast, to discuss the movie in depth. David, fantastic to meet you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good.
Let's talk war movies, because you say war movie and tonally they can be poles apart. You've got the high adventure of something like Where Eagles Dare compared to the realism of something like Saving Private Ryan. When it comes to describing the tone of Fury, where does it sit?
Well, the film's really, it's a day in the life. You know, it's not a movie about a big famous battle. It's not a movie about an event. It's a movie about people. And it's a movie about these 5 brothers just trying to survive in horrible circumstances. So I have to show the horrible circumstances. I have to show what they're experiencing because it's part of the story. It's part of the understanding I'm trying to create.
It's my home.
In a tank unit, it's one of the most, I guess, intimate combat units because they're together, they travel together, live together, eat together. There's no escape in a tank, just like there's no escaping our families.
I started this war killing Germans in Africa. Now I'm killing Germans in Germany. I promised my crew a long time ago I'd keep them alive.
War Daddy isn't the nicest fellow.
I need you to perform. I can't do it! Yes, you can.
He does horrible things, yet at the same time he does have this love and care and regard for the men that he's entrusted with.
Secure the crossroads. These troops get by you, we're all dead in the water. All we got is you.
John, fantastic to have you here, sir. How are you?
Thanks, man. Very good. Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about your character, Kunas. Tell me a bit about him and the kind of guy he is.
His job is manual labor. His job is to just keep shells loaded into that cannon. He doesn't see anything outside of the tank. He can't hear anything outside of the tank. His job is probably not that much different than the job he would have done at the mill in the town that he grew up in. The only difference is he's riding around with the knowledge, knowing at any second he and his brothers can go up like a Roman candle.
Michael Pena, great to have you here. How are you, sir?
Hey, good, good, good.
Tell us a little bit about how Gordo interacts with the other members of his crew, and I guess also how he responds to their sergeant, War Daddy, Brad Pitt's.
I mean, like, it was like literally like a band of brothers, to be honest. I'm like, I remember, like, you know, I would always be driving the tank, and there was a lot of waiting. There's always a lot of waiting in movies, and I would just raise up, and I'm like, "What are you guys talking about?" And you couldn't hear because I'm like the tank was so loud. But I wanted to make myself a little bit of an outsider, because back in the day, you know, they used to beat up the Zoot Suiters, like, you know, guys from the Navy or whatever. You know, even if the guy who was Latin was in the military, they would still, like, you know, have retaliation. So he was hated on both sides, and but he finally found some brothers that accepted him for being him.
I realise in the context of the film, you driving the tank obviously has, you know, you're in character, but to remove that sentence from the context of the film, you drove a tank, man. That's got to be something.
I know it did. That's the kind of thing, like, it didn't even hit me until like 2 months after. I was like, wow, I drove the damn tank. You know what I mean? And it was nerve-wracking because I got Shia LaBeouf and I got, you know, Brad Pitt up on top, like $100 million men or whatever it was. And it was nerve-wracking.
That's some insurance claim,
yeah,
right there.
Exactly.
You roll that thing, and I don't know.
Oh, I was driving like wide-eyed for sure.
Choke her up, she's cold.
There's condensation on the front.
All right, move out. Get us out of here. Bible gun front.
It's always been viewed as, you know, the Great War, and I don't know if there is such a thing. I think the American soldier has been portrayed as this kind of square-jawed, super heroic, fearless, you know, liberator that has gone forward. And I think what we're trying to do with this movie is show guys that are not fearless at all, but are completely fearful, and that are incredibly battle-torn and battle-weary, and that have been going through, you know, unbelievable brutality and unbelievable loss, and have endured real trauma, but they go forward anyway, and they go forward for each other.
Radio's 86. We're on our own. Good shot.
Oh, that wasn't me. No, I'm the instrument, not the hand. God didn't call us today. You hear me, boys?
What's he doing up there? Big paradise? Everyone else came up, snake guys, but us.
Lord's protection.
We got it, don't we, boy?
Yes, sir.
We got it.
Sir. Hey, good job, Norm.
Welcome to the Army, Norm. You did good. Best job I ever had.
Best job I ever had. Best job I ever had. Best job I ever had.
As the audience, you feel a special attachment, particularly to Logan Lerman's character Norman, because in many ways he is you.
Exactly. If I just threw the audience into a tank with 5 cynical, bitter, traumatized men, I could see how that could be a tad off-putting. So it helps to have someone who's as sympathetic and talented, empathetic as Logan Lerman, who goes in and can see it for us and experience it with us, and it can be new for him and us as an audience.
Sergeant Collier, I'm your new assistant driver.
Tank school? That's home.
I've never even seen the inside of a tank.
You will.
Mr. Logan Lerman, it's lovely to have you here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, dude.
You are very much the new recruit. You've been in the Army 8
Yeah.
weeks. Norman's
Yeah.
been in the Army 8 weeks. He
Yeah.
joins this crew, and he is, to a certain extent, very much the eyes and ears of the audience, because he is seeing.
Yeah, he's experiencing it. It's all new to him, as it is to the audience.
I had the best gunner in the entire 9th Army in that seat. Now I got you.
The movie kind of follows a day in the life of this tank crew, but really for Norman more than anybody. You know, it's this 24-hour experience of war, you know, and he is someone who has a moral dilemma with fighting, with killing. And he's educated quickly by these men that he's fighting with on how to survive in wartime.
Fire! On the light! Do what you're here for!
We actually, very kindly, thank you for giving us an exclusive scene to show our viewers. It's the scene that sets up the final battle. I'd love it if you could talk us through that scene and how important it is in setting up the climax to the film.
Well, I don't want to give away the ending of the movie, but it's really where Norman becomes one of the crew members. In the story, his journey is about going from, you know, outsider to accepted member of the family, and everything that means. This dysfunctional, often horrible family. They were just vicious to each other, as families often are. It's an initiation scene, you know, and it's an acknowledgement of this new family member.
Hey! Hey!
Good evening, Norman. Why change your pose? Slow down.
They're coming right now.
Who's coming?
The Germans!
How many?
Oh, too many to count.
How many?
I got two, maybe 300 of them. They got vehicles too.
Tanks?
No, just trucks.
A bunch of bums looking to surrender, that's all.
No. They were marching, they were singing, they sounded like they wanted to fight.
They were singing?
Where? I'm telling you. Right over there.
Hey, you hear that? It's a goddamn SS battalion.
Jesus Christ. Greg, my gun. Yeah.
Look, it's about to be dark.
Just get on up out of here, huh? Let's go.
We ain't never run before, I ain't running now.
What's that?
We're gonna fight it out.
We can't.
I'm gonna hold this crossroad.
What you mean you gonna hold this? The tank's busted. The tank's busted, Top.
Yeah, you said that.
Top, what are you doing? What do you want to do? You want to sit here?
We're gonna hold this
You want to sit
crossroad.
here, hold off SS battalion?
No,
We
it's
ain't
not what
got
I
a
want to do,
tank.
but it's what we're doing.
There's 5 of us.
Get
Your
300
fighting
of
position.
them. Mount up!
Fighting positions when we ain't got a tank. How are we gonna fight?
We got a cannon!
What are you doing?
There ain't no crew stay together like we have. That's because of him.
You know what's waiting for us.
Fury is anchored by a powerful central performance from Brad Pitt. He is one of the few actors that can both be a movie star and yet create a body of work that is as far removed from the Hollywood glitz and glamour as you can imagine. But these are my words. I wanted to find out exactly how his co-stars found working with the man himself.
Cameras are rolling. Here we go. Watch your ears. Ready? And action!
Let's talk about Brad Pitt, because obviously he's...
Let's talk about Brad Pitt.
Let's talk about Brad Pitt.
That comes up a lot in my life.
I bet it
You
does.
do a movie with him, and then, you know, not even in interviews, it's like with my family and friends. Like, let's talk about Brad Pitt everywhere I go. But let's talk about him. What would you like to know?
Well, I
The
wonder...
shoe size?
Go on, yeah, let's start with the shoe size.
I have no idea.
You have no idea?
No.
Hey, why ain't he sleeping?
Did you have a moment where you suddenly went, whoa, who's this guy? And how did you perceive him before you actually ended up working with him on the film?
It's interesting. I think Thelma and Louise, which is actually his first film appearance, and there's the star quality, and I don't know if it's genetics or a spiritual thing. Cameras love movie stars, and you either have it or you don't, and he has it.
Then I just kind of waltz on in, and I say, ladies, gentlemen, let's see who wins the prize for keeping their cool. Simon says, everybody down on the floor.
I was an enormous fan of his, not just because I think he's a wonderful actor and, you know, obviously a great humanitarian, but the choices of films that he's been in. You know, he's never really gone, you know, the big superhero route. He's challenged himself. He's done unbelievable supporting roles. He's obviously a beautiful man, but he's gone so much further than that. He's worked with great directors, you know, Fight Club. So I was obviously an enormous fan.
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
What?
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
He's one of those rare guys that, like, you don't know, like, he's a movie star. You know what I mean? Like, when you meet him, like, everything's cool about him, you know what I mean? It's like, it's really rare, you know, to just be that kind of person.
Bills.
You hit! No!
The film Seven was the first time I sort of sat up and went, who's this guy? This is...
Oh, man. For
this
me, it
is
was Fight Club.
Yeah?
And then I discovered Seven.
Honestly, have you ever seen anything like this? No.
He actually is, you know, one of the most influential people for me in terms of wanting to not be an actor necessarily, but be a filmmaker. And, you know, I started acting to be on sets to learn about films. That's really why I started. And it all started because I had such an appreciation for Fight Club and all of Fincher's films and collaborations with Brad. It's an honor to work with him. It's very cool to be collaborating with him in a creative, you know, sense.
Gentlemen, welcome to Fight Club. The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
He does have this thing where you sort of, he is a movie star.
Yeah.
How important was that quality for the story you were trying to tell and the character War Daddy was going to be in your script?
What's interesting about Brad is he could pretty much get away with anything on camera because he's so likable. He's so empathetic, natural charisma or whatever. So he allows us to enter this character and to not only become tolerant of the character, but to empathize and maybe understand a little bit of that.
He's one of the most famous and well-known movie stars in the world, and then going into this process with a director who demands the kind of commitment that David Ayer does. I've boxed most of my life. I've played sports in high school, college, and professionally. I've definitely been through a lot in my life. David Ayer gets you to do some pretty brutal, rough things, and I'll tell you, you know, when things are pretty rough and you look over and Brad Pitt is doing everything you're doing, you can't complain, because Brad Pitt does not have to do anything he doesn't want to do. And I think that that spoke to me volumes about the kind of guy he was. He wasn't just willing to do everything, he was eager to do everything. There was no separation between him and us. He wanted to invest just as fully as all of we did. It really seemed like the wetter and colder and tougher it got, the bigger the smile on his face was. And you know, now I'm just really proud to call him a friend.
What Brad brings in his work ethic is that he gives a lot and asks for very little. He doesn't demand a lot of movie star crap you typically would see on sets with a lot of big actors. He's someone who wants to make a good film. He's hungry to make good movies and have an immersive experience.
Don't worry about alcohol. He's gonna mail it. Knots can drop in.
I remember like the first time that, you know, there was a show and tell with like all the props, and you know, they showed you the tank and like the, you know, the missiles and all that stuff. And then like, you know, he was late because he had to like navigate through paparazzi. And then, you know, we're all like feeling pretty good about ourselves, and we're like, oh, we're, you know, gonna embark on this new adventure. And then he comes in and he looks like he's like on a Segway, just floating, just like effortlessly. And I looked at the guys, I'm like, dude, we're gonna have to try it a lot harder than this. We're gonna have to work way harder.
Action! Flare. No flare.
He's somebody I've always wanted to work with as a director, and we'd met before. He read this script and just wanted it. He really came after it. And I mean, sure, Brad, you want to do the movie? Fine.
Obviously, actors prepare for roles, but by all accounts, the preparation the cast went through for Fury is something entirely different, by which I mean you really learn something about yourself when you're punching your co-stars in the face.
Why are you here? You're here to kill him. You know why he's here? He's here to kill you. He's here to kill you. He's here to kill you. Try and teach you something.
Sparring physically with each other. I mean, when you sort of sign up for something and suddenly you find yourself in a ring sparring with your co-stars, what's that like?
What's funny is that, you know, I found it it's an enormously valuable acting tool. And, you know, even professional fighters don't spar every day. It definitely takes its toll on the body. But as an acting exercise, there's no lying in fighting. You find out so much about a person's personality by how they deal with the adversity that comes with fighting. It's not about who can beat who up. It's when you're fighting somebody who's tougher than you, how do you act? When you're fighting somebody who's weaker than you, how do you act? Are you a bully? Are you the kind of guy who changes from person to person? Are you the kind of guy that gets taken with anger? Or are you the kind of guy that shows real resolve and patience? And, you know, we found so much about each other that was so clear and so honest. And at the end of the day, the entire pre-production period of this movie was all about us forming a unit and forming a family and really getting to know each other.
Bible, take me through that gun. Nice.
There was at one point, I think 2 weeks before that, we stopped hitting each other in the face just because of the bruising or whatever. But it was rough. It's like, but what happens is like there's a weird respect that goes on. It's like, you know, like in any prize fight, you know, in the 12th round, like after they're beating the crap out of each other, like then you see them and they're like, you know, really admiring, like you did great here, blah, blah, blah. Same thing goes, you know what I mean? When you spar with somebody, then it's over. It's a weird connection. It's a weird connection, but that's, it kind of mirrors war anyway.
Ready and action!
I think what we were all trying to do was to make that set as dangerous as possible. At the end of the day, we're actors who wear makeup and say lines for a living. You know, there's not real bullets being shot at us, but we're really trying to invest and portray a world that is war, and that is hell, and that is extremely dangerous.
In terms of the preparation that you put these guys through. I don't think the word intense does it justice. They were sparring with each other, physically fighting,
Yes.
and all of them talk about how important that was for them in terms of this bonding experience.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, the joke is, if you want to learn what someone's made of, punch them in the face. But there is a simple honesty to that, and actors can be very cagey and aloof with each other. I liken them to magicians, and they're showing each other their tricks, but they're always holding back. And in this case, it forced them to connect and bond and get to know each other, but also trust each other, because they have to not just beat the heck out of each other. You know, there's a trust that develops there, and there's nothing like having like a good sparring session with the actors and then going and doing a rehearsal. It makes them very open to each other, and you can have some incredible breakthroughs.
There's a camera inside. Okay. That'll see you cross and then dump you once you're inside.
Every moment was unpredictable. Every moment was unpredictable. We just felt and reacted and had freedom to explore, which is not always the case. The way that this movie was designed, we had creative freedom, and we ran with it. We didn't have restrictions to sell the movie or something like that, which a lot of films are made under this pressure of shoot what we can sell, you know?
Yeah.
And this movie was not like that. We were making a film that was honest to the director's intentions.